Okay, we'll go ahead and get started now. So welcome to Disinfecting 101, presented by Nichols. Myself, Mary LaGuire, I'm the corporate trainer here at Nichols, also the business development leader, and I'm also ISSA CMI Cleaning Management Institute. Been in the industry for close to 20 years, and I'm really excited to bring this topic to you of disinfecting, just in general, getting back to basics with everything we're hearing out there. We also have on the line Bob Mercuri, who is our Cleveland sales leader, and Glen Huizenga, who is the West Michigan sales leader. Okay, let's get right into it. So this is what we're going to talk about. Really, again, getting back to basics and talking about what are germs and the different types of germs that we all encounter every day. What is disinfecting, when to disinfect, where and how, and then things to consider when purchasing a disinfectant. And then what are we hearing out there? We're hearing a lot of things right now, and we can certainly talk about some of those things. And then we have some additional resources for you to have access to at the end of this. So what are germs? So germs, or microbes, you probably often hear them referred to as, they're everywhere. They're in the air we breathe, food we eat, plants, animals, soil, water, even you. Most are not harmful to us because our immune system protects us against them, some of the basic ones, but however, germs are constantly mutating and they try to breach our immune system defenses. And we all know there's lots and lots of types of germs out there. Here are some of the types. The four main types are bacteria, viruses, fungus, and protozoans. Bacteria, some examples of those include strep throat, pneumonia, tuberculosis, C. diff, MRSA. So we hear a lot about these in the news and when there's an infection outbreak, and hopefully none of you have had to deal with them at your facility. But what these are is they're single-celled living organisms. So they're pretty large. They get nutrients from the environments they live in, and the disease-causing bacteria produces toxins in your body, and that's what makes you sick or ill and causes the infection. Viruses, some examples of those include flu, measles, norovirus, that nasty one that spreads really fast on cruise ships and sometimes, unfortunately, in facilities as well, Ebola, and then, of course, what we're dealing with right now, COVID-19. Viruses are much smaller than bacteria, about 1,000 times, and require a host cell to live. They attach to and invade the cells in your body and hijack the machinery that makes cells work. Most viruses cause disease and can be very specific of the cell it attacks. Lungs, liver. In this case with the COVID-19, we hear how it can rapidly attack the lungs. Fungi, some examples of that include athlete's foot and ringworm. They're multi-cell, and they get their nutrients from plants, people, or animals. And most are not dangerous to healthy people, but we've heard of some outbreaks consisting of some of those. Protozoans, examples include malaria and other intestinal infections. They're one-celled and behave like tiny animals gathering other microbes or food. They spread through water or food you eat or mosquitoes. This chart is a nice way that breaks it down as well to look at what are viruses versus bacteria and the key differences between these two common pathogens. So again, viruses are not living organisms where bacteria are. Viruses only grow and reproduce inside of the host cell they infect. When found outside of these living cells, they're dormant or their life therefore requires hijacking of the biochemical activities of the living cell. Where bacteria are living organisms that consist of a single cell that can generate energy, make its own food, move, and reproduce. This allows bacteria to live in many places: soil, water, plants, human body, and serve many purposes. Viruses are submicroscopic, like I mentioned, where bacteria are giant compared to viruses. A viral infection is systematic. They infect the host cell and then multiply by the thousands, leaving the host cell and infecting other cells of the body. bacteria infection is usually confined to a part of the body as a localized infection and can be caused by the bacteria or by toxins produced. And viruses, systematic diseases caused by viral infection, I shared some examples, but more include influenza, measles, polio, AIDS, and of course, COVID-19. Bacteria diseases include pneumonia, TB, tetanus, and food poisoning. Okay, so what is our defense against these germs? Well, the germs spread through the air, sneezes, cough, breath. That's why we're hearing a lot with COVID that it's important to wear masks. You never know if you cough or sneeze, how you can protect those people around you. They also spread on surfaces, sweat, saliva, blood, urine, feces. And the pathway for the germs entering the body is when a person touches a contaminated air or comes in contact with that contaminated air or surface, and then touch their eyes, ears, mouth, or nose. And that's the pathway for those germs entering the body. So our best defense is regularly cleaning surfaces that are touched often, washing our hands regularly, avoiding close contact with sick people, vaccines, and medicines. So just in general, these are some great ways to defend against some of these germs. So what is disinfecting? Well, we hear a lot about sanitizing surfaces, disinfecting surfaces, sterilizing, cleaning. What's the difference between all of these? So the difference is cleaning is simply the removal of substance from a surface. Germs are not killed, but can be removed in the process, and their food source is removed, and therefore they can't thrive. So cleaning is a very effective way to clean those germs or microorganisms off a surface because you're removing their food source. And it's actually a essential first step. Sanitizing. Sanitizing kills 99.99% of germs on surfaces. And again, they must be cleaned first, and there's a dwell time required with a sanitizer. When you are having food on a surface, prepping food or eating food off a surface, you can't disinfect. You need to use sanitizer because that's safer for that surface. If you use a disinfectant, you need a potable rinse. With sanitizer, you do not. The product must be registered with the EPA to kill whatever it is you're trying to sanitize. Disinfect kills 99.99999% of germs. Actually, they call it 6 log. Surfaces must be cleaned first, just like with sanitizing, and a dwell time is required. Not to be used in food prep surfaces unless you have a potable rinse, and products must be registered with the EPA. And then sterilization. You often hear about this in a healthcare setting, sterilizing the tools that they use for surgeries. It's making that object free, 100% barren of life and microorganisms by chemical or in heat. And the term we often hear in healthcare is autoclaving. We have a poster, so this is one of those helpful tools and resources, if you can see here too, on the screen to the left on our website, that you can hang up cleaning versus sanitizing versus disinfecting for your staff to learn. And we also have a video, and I'll share more details at the end. So types of chemical disinfectants. Bob, would you like to take this slide?
Absolutely, I'd love to, thank you. So these are different types of raw ingredients or the disinfecting ingredient of pretty much all the chemicals that you guys work with on a daily basis. Alcohol, chlorines, formaldehydes, hydrogen peroxide, peracetic acids, which are fairly new, phenolics that have been around a long time. And something like a phenolic was originally a product that was in most disinfectants that killed TB. Now, again, technology, time, chemistry has changed. We have some safer products, but even the quaternary ammonium compounds on the bottom, there's several varieties of quats out there that kill disinfectants. But things that you need to consider is when taking a look at these pesticides or these disinfectants, raw ingredients that go in, is you know, what are the ramifications to, you know, the surfaces that you're cleaning with them? How safe are they? Some of them may have quicker kill claims than others, or longer dwell times. But you've got to consider, most importantly, when dealing with these descriptions, is what's it doing to the surfaces I'm cleaning, and does it fit within my program as far as time and labor? And you know, bleach isn't on here too, but I get a lot of questions here in Cleveland about, you know, folks that want to use bleach, and bleach is a disinfectant technically, even if it doesn't say so on the label. It pretty much kills everything it touches if mixed correctly. But again, that's something else you got to remember. The shelf life on something like that is only about a day. By the time you mix it with water, it starts to lose its efficacy and no longer disinfects. Plus, it's damaging to pretty much any surface it touches. Your clothing, if you're touching, you know, desktops, or what you may damage can be, you know, can be a problem. So make sure that you're using the right disinfectant for your program.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bob. And I think important takeaway is that not all disinfectants are created equal. There's lots of different types of disinfectants as shown here. And actually, if you mix any of these types of disinfectants, it can be very, very harmful and very dangerous. So it's a very important training point as well when speaking to the safety of your employees using these types of disinfectants. So what disinfectant kills what germs? So you learned about all the different germs out there. How do you know what disinfectant kills the germ or pathogen that you are trying to kill? So the first thing you can do is check the label. It will list some of the main germs, pathogens that it kills. You can also check with your Nichols sales representative. Your sales representative works very closely with all the manufacturer representatives of the chemicals that we carry, P&G, Spartan, Clorox, name a few. So they're a great resource, and sell these to a lot of other types of facilities like you. So typically we'll have the answer that you're looking for. Another thing you can do is go right to that chemical manufacturer's website. And I have an example here on the right-hand side of the screen. I went to Spartan's website and pulled up TB side quat. So the manufacturer's website and Spartan lays it out very, very nicely. When you search that product, it has all the information you need for that product, including the SDS. But towards the bottom there, in the middle, it says TB side quat Efficacy Bulletin. So in that Efficacy Bulletin will show what it kills. So very important to know that if you're trying to target a specific pathogen. Some will also put it on their literature pieces as well. Then you can also check the EPA website, and I'll go through next how to do that. But first, to pull up the TB side quat Efficacy Bulletin, when you pull that up, it looks something like this. I know it's a little hard to see on your screen, but it will list out all of the viruses, bacteria, funguses, all those different types of germs we talked about, and what it kills, and what the contact time or dwell time in that very last column is required to kill that specific pathogen. So it's very important to look to that, because if you don't leave the disinfectant wet on the surface for that required contact time or dwell time, it will not kill the pathogen that you're trying to target. So you can see some common ones in here for viruses, norovirus, for bacteria, salmonella. So again, whatever it is you're targeting, you can look that up, see what the contact time is, and follow the directions. As I mentioned, you can also go to the EPA website, the product label system. And in the product label system, it lets you type in a number, and it will bring up all of the pests that pesticide kills. If it's a private labeled product, you just need the first couple portions of the number, not the last, because it'll be registered under the main portion. But you'll be able to find what you need there for what it kills. The example I have here is the Oxivir wipes by Diversey. So on the back of the wipes is the EPA registered number. So every disinfectant is required to have that. So you will go to that product label system on the EPA website, type in the number, and then the last tab here that says pests, it shows the different, it'll just list them out. So again, doesn't per se give you all the information, the directions. So sometimes you're going to multiple places to find what you need. But with all your resources, your Nichols rep, your manufacturer rep, you'll be able to find what you're looking for. Now, the EPA also has registered lists for common pathogens that are out there. You can see here over the years if there's an outbreak, or maybe they're just collecting disinfectants against a particular common pathogen, you'll be able to click on this list and find them all there as well. So you can see list N, which I will review, is the list for against COVID-19, the use of SARS-CoV-2 that we'll talk about. But before that is claims against bird flu. And then before that, Ebola. If you remember, a couple of years we were dealing with that. So they create these lists of disinfectants to have a quick summary of what is effective against those different pathogens. So what is List N? List N is what the EPA quickly put together to give us a guide of what can kill against the SARS-CoV-2. So how does the EPA know what products are on List N work against COVID-2 since it is an emerging pathogen? So while the surface disinfectant products on List N have not been tested specifically against SARS-CoV-2, the cause of COVID-19, EPA expects them to kill the virus because they demonstrate efficacy against harder to kill viruses. So that is how they got to this List N, and it's very extensive, and they've done a good job in making it easy to where you can go right to their website, type in the product's EPA number, and it will let you know if it's approved to kill the SARS-CoV-2. And they're updating it very frequently, so you can check that at any time. All surface disinfectants on List N can be used to kill viruses on surfaces such as counters and doorknobs. And because SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus, this pathogen is not readily available for use in commercial laboratory testing to see if a certain disinfectant product is effective at killing the virus.
Mary, something that's confusing to me about that I just want to make sure everyone's clear about is the EPA actually doesn't test any of these products themselves. They actually rely on the manufacturer's data that they provide for them to either give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down when they receive it.
Yes. Thanks, Bob. So now let's talk about the dwell time, or contact time. It's the amount of time the surface must remain visibly wet in order to kill the pathogen microorganism before the disinfectant is wiped off. The surface needs to be left undisturbed. So that's very important, especially for training purposes, that if there's not enough disinfectant on the surface, if it's not visibly wet, it's not going to do its job killing the pathogen that you need it to do. And we're talking so much lately about having the disinfectant that's going to kill the SARS-CoV-2. So it's very important to make sure, okay, you have the product, now use it correctly so that it can actually do what you intend for it to do. I also wanted to talk about what is EPA versus FDA versus CDC. We hear a lot of information from all these different sources, especially with right now going on with COVID-19. And as we just talked about, the EPA regulates disinfectants that are used on surfaces. They require manufacturers to test the formulations, like Bob said, by using acceptable methods for microbicidal activity, stability, and toxicity to animals and humans. The manufacturers then submit this data to the EPA with proposed labeling. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, is responsible for protecting the public health by ensuring safety, efficacy, and security of human and veterinary drugs. So you'll often hear that hand sanitizer is FDA approved, and that is a correct statement because that is actually going on your skin. So the FDA approves the hand sanitizer that we use. So it's very important to make sure that it has that approval. And then the CDC, we also get a lot of information with everything going on with COVID-19 from them. They're not a regulatory agency. They don't test, evaluate, or otherwise recommend specific brand name products, but they're intended to provide overall guidance on select general classifications of products based on certain infection control principles. Now let's talk about when to disinfect. So whether we're in a pandemic right now or not, it's important to have a good daily cleaning routine where you're cleaning and disinfecting all of your FTOs, your frequently touched objects and surfaces such as desks, counters, doorknobs, computer, keyboards, hands-on learning items, faucets, handles, phones, and it's important to have those all identified as well. We have a poster here on our training website, and again, a video to accompany it that points out in an office setting what all those FTOs are. Immediately clean surfaces and objects if they are visible soil or body fluid on the surface, adhering to the bloodborne pathogen requirements, so that is definitely a must. And then if there's a higher number of sick cases, like we're dealing with right now, if you have a COVID outbreak, FTOs are to be disinfected multiple times a day in between classes and shifts. So what does a higher number of sick cases mean or an outbreak? Well, an outbreak, it could be anything, right? It could be the flu at your facility. It could be the common cold. There's lots of different outbreaks that could happen. So that's when you want to increase that cleaning of those frequently touched objects. So it's a greater than anticipated increase in number of cases. It can also be a single case in a new area, usually a community. If it's not quickly controlled, it can become an epidemic, where an epidemic is a disease that infects a larger number of people within a community, population, or region. So very important to get it under control when it's in that outbreak stage. And then unfortunately, like what we're dealing with right now, pandemic that's spread over multiple countries or continents. So if that is happening, that's when you really want to increase your disinfecting. Some of the most common infectious diseases in the US before COVID-19, these were most of them that we were dealing with, right? And these outbreaks do happen. I remember in my kids' school earlier in the year, they were having a flu influenza A outbreak in this area. So these outbreaks do happen, and that's when you definitely want to increase your cleaning and disinfecting protocol. Staph, E. coli, norovirus is a really nasty one as well that can spread quickly. Salmonella, common cold, pneumonia, common cold again because it's common, hepatitis A and B, hand, foot, and mouth, pink eye, RSV is another respiratory virus that is becoming more and more popular, and then of course COVID-19. So now where to disinfect? We talked about those high-touch surfaces, but they're also important that they're non-porous surfaces. That's what a disinfectant is meant to work on. It's not meant to work on soft surfaces. You can't disinfect a soft surface, a chair, couch, furniture, not to be used on items if like toys that children are putting in their mouths, because that's not safe, or food prep area like what we talked about. That's when you would want to use a sanitizer or you have that potable rinse. Disinfectant definitely not to be used on human bodies, which we'll talk about safety here in a minute. And if the place hasn't been occupied for more than 7 days, it's really not necessary for, depending on the pathogen, how long it lives, but the CDC has said that COVID, that they found not to live past 7 days. So making sure it just has a thorough cleaning, again, getting rid of that food source for any sort of pathogen to live on is very important. So in your facility, identify what those FTOs are before you open back up if you haven't opened back up already. Have a checklist and document everything. So this is an example of a 3M checklist. They have different tabs, classrooms, restrooms, office, and what all those FTOs are in all those areas. And document it that the person who is cleaning all of those FTOs. I think before COVID-19, it may have been easy to overlook some of those areas. We don't want to do that anymore. We're in the midst of a pandemic. We want to make sure, we have to make sure that those areas are being checked off. One thing I wanted to point out is Nichols has an app called aPro 360, where really that's what it is, a tool for documentation. And it's free to Nichols customers. You you program it to the different areas that you want checked off. You can incorporate pictures if you want a picture taken of the area. And it's just a way, again, to document everything that is being cleaned. If by chance there was ever an outbreak, you can go back and see that these areas are being cleaned. So how to disinfect? So really, when it comes to how to disinfect, wanted to touch on three main things that I call very important processes, three main disinfecting VIPs, and that is safety, dilution, and dwell time. When it comes to disinfecting safety, because of the pandemic that we're in, disinfecting has really been on the rise, to say the least. We all know it. Everybody's buying it and using it everywhere. So it's kind of disturbing to see that the number of cases to the U.S. poison centers has increased 20%. So more people are using disinfectants, and more cases are happening because people are using them incorrectly. So we need to talk about the safety when using a disinfectant. Every commercial cleaning disinfectant has an SDS, and you can find them on our website, on the Nichols website. You can find them on the manufacturer's website, and you should have a copy, it's the law, at your facility with the disinfectant, the SDS sheet, so anyone can easily access it if something were to happen. It has 16 sections of it, and it talks about when using this disinfectant, what you should follow for PPE rules, for handling, for dispensing. And this example I brought up, it's the Nichols No. 3 Fresh Neutral Disinfectant. In the areas I highlighted, you can see the GHS labels in the red diagrams there show that it's corrosive and hazardous to the environment. Because it's corrosive and hazardous, it's harmful if swallowed, can cause severe skin burns and eye damage. So for precautionary PPE, wear protective gloves, clothing, and face protection. So anytime you're handling this chemical, whether you're dispensing it, using it, you want to make sure you have that PPE or you could get seriously injured. So disinfecting VIP safety. There's these basic rules to follow. Training is very important. Training your staff on how to effectively don and doff the PPE. And we have a video and a poster that I'll show you where to go to get that on our website. Mask, goggles, gloves, very important to train your team on that. Labels and documents provide essential safety information as well. A lot of labels will have it right on there. The personal protection equipment that you can wear includes gloves, safety goggles, face shields, aprons, respirators, and it will show you on the SDS what you should wear. Very important for training to talk about never mixing chemicals. They don't know what danger it can happen if they mix chemicals. And then it's the law to follow the safety practices set up by the government agencies and your employer. And your employees, they have the right to know what chemicals they are using and how to safely protect themselves against them. Another disinfecting VIP dilution. Bob, would you like to take this one?
Absolutely, this one's my favorite. Disinfectants need to be mixed properly. Dilution of chemicals has been a 30-year struggle of mine in this industry. I've taught a class for a while here in Cleveland, and I've had thousands and thousands of participants come through this building. And I can tell you absolutely positively that less than 10% of the attendees I've had in this class know that there are 120 ounces in a gallon. Now, fortunately, most of your staff or most of your buildings have some form of dilution control system in them that's mixing this product for you. But what we're seeing now, where people were buying disinfectants, they were kind of grabbing whatever they could get, and a lot of folks had to go back to try to figure out how to mix this stuff. So it's a basic ratio, guys. It's a ratio of anything. So if a product has a dilution rate of 1 to 64, and you're equating it to gallons, it's a dilution rate of 2 to 128 or 2 ounces per gallon. If they're trying to mix that in quarts, you divide that 128 by 4, you get to 32. divide the 2 by 4, you get to a quarter, so it's a quarter ounce to 32. All kinds of charts out there, all kinds of stuff available, but you know what happens, and Mary talked about when you mix 2 things together, you never know what's going to happen when you mix 2 products from a safety standpoint. Also from an SDS standpoint, if you mix a disinfectant that says induce vomiting with a disinfectant that says do not induce vomiting, and someone decides to drink some of it, stranger things have happened. I've got cases here in Cleveland where it has. You know, what's going to happen when that individual is taken to the ER? How are they going to treat that patient? The ramifications of it not working well, when you dilute it too weak, or if you dilute it too strong, more is not better in this case. These products are formulated, again, they're pesticides. They are formulated to work with water in the ratio that is there. I've had all kinds of issues here in Cleveland with, you get something called quat buildup, especially if you're working with quaternary ammonium chloride, that it will make an entire building sticky. I guarantee you that. Too much disinfectant is hazardous. Some of those other disinfectants we want in that list on, I mean, you can all figure out what's going to happen if you use too much bleach, too much phenolic. I've had a nursing home evacuated because the guy decided to mop the cafeteria floor with a phenolic disinfectant one day and used it straight. You got to be very careful, make sure you're following the guidelines, mixing it as directed. And again, you're targeting the right product.
All right, thanks, Bob. Okay, so the last disinfecting VIP wanted to touch on is the dwell time or the contact time. Remember to clean the surface first, like what we talked about, if it's visibly dirty. Again, that disinfecting product cannot work if there's visible dirt on the surface, so you need to clean that first. It must be completely saturated with the disinfectant and not dry within the required dwell time. And use a timer to track this dwell time. If your folks who are doing the cleaning don't have a way to monitor how long the surface is visibly wet, how do you know that the job's really getting done, that you're disinfecting what needs to get disinfected? So have a timer, have a stopwatch, or use their phone, whatever they have available to them to physically time. If it says it takes 2 minutes to kill this particular pathogen that you're trying to kill, or if it takes 10 minutes, it needs to be wet for that 10 minutes. And then you can rinse if you want to protect the surface. Again, some can be damaging to surface, especially if you use that disinfectant over and over again. It can produce kind of a gummy layer on top or film. So maybe doing a rinse every now and then between it, especially since we're using a lot of disinfectant right now, or food contact surface, you definitely want to use that potable rinse. Some last best practices on how to disinfect: clean systematically, either clockwise or counterclockwise, to help keep track of everything that you're cleaning. Go from clean to dirty, especially if you are cleaning a restroom. Go to the sinks and toilet last, not the other way around. Clean from top to bottom, especially important when you are dusting. That dust and debris is going to fall, so it doesn't make sense to clean the bottom first and then work your way up. And then wipe in one direction. Circular wiping can recontaminate areas and ensures the solution is applied to the whole surface. How to disinfect: applicators. There's lots and lots of different applicators out there, and Glenn is going to walk us through some of them.
Good afternoon, everybody. You know, it's an exciting time. Actually, it's a very different time to be in our industry, but I consider it to be quite exciting. As a guy who was a custodian back in his early 20s and loved being a custodian, we were given a lot of responsibility. And this time right now of pandemic COVID gives us an opportunity to truly be essential. And along with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's on the webinar, because we are contributing a lot to what's going on. And so thank you for participating in our webinar. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Mary mentioned applicators and just tools to use. And there's been a lot of discussion around these kinds of tools. Obviously, we have chemicals that are ready to use that come in quart bottles or even gallon containers that have trigger sprayers, and we can apply that disinfectant that way. We can put disinfectant into a pail and use a cloth and apply disinfectant to surfaces that way. There's been a lot of conversation around electrostatic sprayers or applicators, as well as fogging machines and or misters. and a lot of confusion that's come around those pieces of equipment as well. But the important thing is, how do we get disinfectant on a surface, in particular the touch surfaces, in the most effective manner to do the thing that we need to do? A lot of questions about misters versus electrostatic. Of course, electrostatic is almost impossible to get right now. They're 10 to 12 weeks out. And then misters are available, so we can find mist products right now. If you have a need that's immediate, we have some tools that are available. Foggers are an interesting device. You know, the CDC has kind of frowned a little bit on fogging chemicals. So just be super careful and have conversations with your Nichols rep about foggers. And then lastly on the list is this concept of ultraviolet devices that kill. Mostly used in the healthcare space, where you can, you know, put one of these UV machines into a patient room, turn it on, vacate the room, and actually disinfect a room over a period of time using UV light. So there's a myriad of applicators and tools available at your, you know, that you can choose. So just kind of reach out to us, and we will help, you know, find you the right tool to apply your disinfectant.
All right, thanks, Glenn. So how to choose the right disinfectant for your facility. So we talked a lot about the different types of germs to kill, the proper dwell time, and then Glenn just talked about the different applications. So how do you decipher all this information and find what is the right disinfectant and process for you to use at your facility? So think about what it is that you are trying to kill. So even if we weren't in a pandemic right now, is there an outbreak going on at your facility that you're trying to kill a specific pathogen, and making sure that that disinfectant work against that? How much time do you have to kill it? All of them have different dwell times, it seems like. So taking a look at how much dwell time do you need to clean in between classrooms, or are you in an office setting where the disinfectant, where it can work overnight? So thinking about that, how much time you have. Also, what surface are you cleaning and disinfecting is very important too. Is it a sensitive surface? Is the disinfectant possibly going to ruin that? The environment, the smell, all chemicals have different smells, and do you need to be sensitive to the people around you that you're using it? Is the surface visibly dirty often and require cleaning first? Important to look at. And then do you have a lot of turnover with your staff, making training difficult? If that's the case, maybe a ready-to-use system is the best type of system for you, where it's very easy, limited training, basically foolproof. And how accessible does the disinfectant need to be? Do you need to have it right there for someone to grab on a dime if they need to quickly disinfect something? Or is it okay to be put away in the closets with the dilution station? So talk to your distributor sales representative, talk to your Nichols representative about the answers to these questions of what you're trying to kill, and they will help find a disinfectant system that is right for you. And then I also have a slide here just to kind of wrap it up of what are some of the things we're hearing out there. And this is pertaining mostly to schools. In fact, our governor was just on today talking about schools reopening. We have a lot of people in Ohio and in Indiana as well. And just these are some of the things we're hearing out there. Athletic departments in Ohio mandating to disinfect all facilities and locker rooms after each sporting event. Transportation. There's a lot of conversation on busing systems for kids and how are they going to disinfect in between that. Drinking fountains that are out there at offices or at schools. I think a lot of them are just covering them up, is what we found. Having sneeze shields or clear shields at transactional counters. If you've gone to the bank or even to the grocery store, you've all seen that everybody has these shields up now. And if you do have those shields, what's a good product to use on them? Because not a lot of products are safe to use on that plexiglass. Eliminating hand dryers is something that, at least in Michigan, the governor put executive order out against. And then touch-free everything is a trend that we're hearing, and looking at reducing those amount of FTOs, those frequently touched objects in your facilities. Doors, can you put a little kickstand on it for helping to open or close the door? Trash receptacles, does your trash can require you to push on a door to throw something away, or do you have a drop-in trash container? Soap and sanitizer dispensers, are they touch-free? Paper towel dispensers, so just eliminating all of those touch points. And lastly, before we get to the comments and questions, wanted to share with you some of these resources where you can find them, that I mentioned them throughout the presentation. On our website, enichols.com, we have a COVID landing page. We actually call it our Better Together page. And you can see here there's 5 boxes where we have our latest updates, our industry resources, our Better Together, all of the tools, the posters and videos I mentioned, equipment service, and our Clean and Healthy program. For the industry and vendor resources tab, here you will find a lot of really great information. What we call our vendor, our manufacturer representatives out there from like 3M, Gojo, Diversey, Rubbermaid, Spartan, they've all come out with a lot of really great information. Some have checklists for your facilities, best practices, just common tips and tools for you to use. And we wanted one place to be able to collect it all and put it there for you. So it's a great landing page just to check out some of those manufacturing resources that all of our manufacturing partners have out there. On the Better Together page, like I mentioned, that's where all of our training posters and videos are. We have how to hand wash, which should be posted in every bathroom to make sure people are properly washing their hands, the #1 defense against this coronavirus. Cleaning of frequently touched objects. One of the things with ready to use is there's been a bit of a shortage in trigger sprayers and bottles. So plastic is becoming a supply issue. So we have a training video and poster in there how to wash and reuse safely and properly those trigger sprayers and bottles so that you can use another chemical in it without mixing. So there's some really great resources there for you to check out. And then our Clean and Healthy program. We have links to all the products that are popular right now with having your facility be a clean and healthy environment for everyone who enters. And then last but not least, we have a COVID product resource that we're updating practically daily of products that everybody needs right now for their facilities to help fight this pandemic. And then I also already spoke about the Nichols aPro 360, but here's another slide on that. And if you'd like more information on this or any of this, please reach out to your Nichols representative. So with that, I will go to the questions.
Mary, something else to bring up. I know you did a nice job. We were talking about the supply chain with bottles and pumps and triggers and making sure we're conserving those. Your gloves also, guys. Gloves are hard to find right now, but there right now is no shortage of disinfectants. There are some products that aren't being made because manufacturers had a tough time getting raw ingredients for them. But there are lots of disinfectants out there off that end list that kills. Don't panic, don't overpay. And again, you can take the time to make sure you're getting the right product for your program.
That's a very good point, Bob. That end list is quite extensive. And like I mentioned, they're doing a great job at updating it. So, and that's why they made it so easy for you to just pop in the EPA number on the product and be able to search it. Here's the first question. What is the best cleaning agent for stainless steel water fountains that is good for germs and hard water, but still safe for humans?
What do you think, Bob? You want to tackle that one? And Mary, while Bob's doing that, would you be willing to maybe pull up our website and kind of prep up to show them the actual COVID icon?
Absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, Bob.
So that's there's a couple layers to this question, because when you start talking about stainless steel water fountains, we got to talk about what we're trying to clean off of it. And there's always a lot of confusion over cleaning stainless steel versus polishing stainless steel because they're typically two different products. But if you're cleaning hard water and mineral and things off of a drinking fountain, and Glenn, I'm going to have you back me up on this one, you're typically using an acidic type product like a CLR, maybe even a peroxide, a hydrogen peroxide, which is a good solid product cleaned up. It's a little lighter acid, but over time it'll do it. You may need a green scratch pad or a little more elbow grease. But none of, get one of those with a disinfectant in it. But again, I still think this is a two-step process. I know a lot of our buildings in Cleveland or in Northeast Ohio, where I am, are talking about closing down their drinking fountains and going to the bottle fill stations. I've actually had requests to quote those, which we don't sell, regretfully, so we can't get them for you. You need to go probably to a plumbing hardware store. But it's almost still a two-step process. I would continue to clean it with what you were cleaning it with previously, which is going to be some type of an acid-based cleaner or some kind of a polish base. And then I would be disinfecting it afterwards and just spraying it down wet with any disinfectant that you choose and letting it stay wet for as long as you can. Keep in mind that this could technically be considered a food surface, so you may want to do like I'll go ahead, like a Clorox Biostain or something that's safe in food prep areas, or the Gojo, the Purell disinfectant for food surface. If you can find those, that'd be a good choice. If not, disinfect, and then you can come back and rinse with potable water after the fact if you needed to. Is that good?
Yeah. That's exactly right. I agree. Two-part process, and if you don't have one of those products that you can't rinse, a good rinse, especially on the actual fountain where the water's coming out of, is a good idea. Thanks. All right, Mary, you want to show them the website where they can find the posters and the Better Together and all that?
Absolutely. So our next question is where to find the posters so you can print them for your staff. So here are those tabs that I mentioned on our, if you click on our coronavirus looking germ here at the top, that takes you to our Better Together landing page here of our latest updates, industry resources, Better Together, equipment service, and clean and healthy program. On the Better Together, when you click here, these are all of our downloadable posters. So you can download this to poster size format to print off for your facility if you want to get it laminated. And then this is where the links to all the videos are as well. So we have several here. We're always updating. How to don and doff the PPE, I think, is one of our latest ones. Restroom care. So this is where you can get all that. Also check with, if you have a hard time with printing or laminate, check with your Nichols representative, sales representative. They can help with that as well. Next question. So Glenn, do you want to take this one? It says, can you repeat what you said earlier about bleach shelf life? Or if Bob wants to take this one, since it was Bob talking about it. Did you say that bleach/water solution should be remixed every day? And is it not as good after having been mixed for a day?
That's all accurate, yes. So I know bleach, when it's introduced to air or water, starts to lose its efficacy almost immediately. And I know that depending on the type of bleach and the percent of sodium hypochlorite that's in there, some of the ones that mix have to be dumped out and refilled every day for them to be 100% efficacious towards killing anything. Like I said, you guys, I love bleach. I love the smell of bleach. I love when something, when bleach has been used in some place. But it's really dangerous, guys. I've always joked, if I could make an air freshener that smells like bleach that wasn't bleach, I'd be a rich man. It damages surfaces, it damages clothing. It doesn't clean anything, and I know that people think it cleans. It doesn't clean. There's no surfactant. There's nothing in there to remove soil. It is just basically, it's like napalm over something that's scorching everything it touches and killing everything for about 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. And again, just to remind everyone, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box and we will answer it. While we wait for any more questions, I will also show you the industry resource tab, which I love because it has a lot of the great resources from all of our manufacturer partners out there. And what you want to do here is click on this purple bar here. And so 3M has a back to business webinar. There's things from the CDC. Clorox has a lot of really great information, diversity, Gojo, Essity. So depending on if you're using these products or not, this information is here for you to use. Essity has some really neat safe at work, even for example, for education, like a coloring book for kids. So let's see, P&G, reopening hospitalities, and food establishment guidance. There's lots of great stuff from Spartan and Rubbermaid. So that's just to show you where all of those manufacturer resources are out there. And let's see, any more questions coming in? I think that's it, guys, for questions. There was a lot of thank yous and thank you very help. Oh, here's one more question. What are some of the top recommended disinfectants to use on upholstered chairs located in the church sanctuary? So very, very good question, as especially if you have multiple services in a day, you want to be disinfecting those in between. So Glenn, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, there are some options. Some of them can be a little challenging to get. I know Clorox has a disinfecting spray that you could utilize. There are some other, and that's an aerosol. There's a couple other aerosols from Spartan that could be utilized that way as well. Sterafine is one of them. Then there's a product called Vital Oxide, VITAL oxide, and it is available in like 5-gallon pails or larger containers. Trying to find the gallon containers right now of that particular product is a challenge. It is COVID approved, but it is also fabric safe. So the Vital Oxide product is a really good choice as well. And that's what I have recommended to most of the churches that I've dealt with. Any additions, Bob, you'd like to throw in there? I only touched a few.
No, I mean, those are all some of the ones I go with, the Clorox 4-in-1, the BioStain. Soft surface disinfecting is an issue because there's no regulations pertaining to it. Even curtains and things like that come into this venue. I like the Clorox 4-in-1. You can spray any disinfectant on it, and the chances of it, as long as it stays there long enough, like your quaternary ammonium chloride, so if you're using something concentrated, it's not going to damage a chair.
Right.
And then again, the Clorox 360 is a great, the electrostatic sprayers are really good right now too for soft surfaces.
Yeah, I think it's important, like what we talked about, that being that it's a soft surface and a porous surface, the EPA is not going to regulate it necessarily killing everything in there, but it's better than nothing. Is that what you're saying, Bob?
Yeah, you gotta do something.
Yeah, you gotta do something. Absolutely. We did have a couple more questions come in. So any health concerns for the staff constantly using disinfectants and sanitizers?
Glenn?
Well, I think with anything, we're dealing with chemicals, right? And so my suggestion at all times is to wear PPE, especially gloves. I think it's extremely important. As we atomize disinfectants, if we're going to use a mister of any sort, if we're going to atomize it, meaning small little bubbles that we breathe, I think it's important to wear a mask. We don't have N95 masks available to us as an industry. It's really focused in on the healthcare market space. So on the janitorial side of things, if we're more of an institutional or commercial, we don't have the N95 masks, but there are others, KN95 masks that we have. There are your cloth masks, you've got dust masks that help. But I would say always err on side of caution when you're using any cleaning chemical. And to a degree, you can even take that along glass cleaners. I mean, you can use it with any chemical. It's just be kind of smart over long term. I don't want to take a bath in the stuff, I'll tell you that. So it's just be wise. And if you have troubles breathing, or if you're struggling with a particular disinfectant, I would definitely contact your supervisor and let them know that, and have them, reach out to us to help you out.
I always like to remind people that technically these are pesticides. They kill microorganisms.
Yep.
Just like a bug spray or anything else, you got to be careful with them. Back when this started in March, I know Glenn, Mary, all of us at Nichols had all kinds of conversations about overuse, because, boy, I'll tell you what, back.
Oh, Bob, are you there?
Bob locked up.
Bob locked up, darn it.
Not 100% sure where Bob was going with it all, but there's one more question, it looks like here.
Used within a manner in which the manufacturer suggests. So you're supposed to use it as directed and read the SDS.
Amen.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen such an increase from the poison control, is that folks are not used to using this as often as everybody is right now and not taking the proper precautions. When you look at the SDS sheet, if it's a disinfectant, it's going to say it's corrosive and hazardous to the skin. So you got to wear your gloves. You got to wear, like Glenn mentioned, your mask if you're putting it in some sort of spray or you don't want to breathe that in. So it's very, very important. So I would say yes, there is health concerns around constantly using the disinfectant sanitizers. But if you're not using the proper PPE and following the safety data instructions, which we should all be doing anyways, but I just think since everybody's using them a lot more, it's just becoming more and more common right now. A couple more questions that came in on the do's and don'ts for disinfecting. One of them was items kids can put in their mouths. Is there anything to disinfect toys or anything like that? For toys and anything that is around food prep areas that people are going to be putting in their mouth, definitely recommended that a disinfectant is not to be used. I shouldn't say recommended, a disinfectant should not be used, and that you would use a sanitizer instead. If
Correct.
you use a disinfectant, maybe that's all you have, you have to use a potable rinse. So you have to rinse that off afterwards because it is toxic, it is harmful if you're using it on a toy that a kid can put in their mouth. So great question there. We don't want to harm the kiddos, like in daycares and whatnot like that. They use sanitizers on cleaning those toys and objects that are put in the kid's mouth. Another question, so the number 3 Nichols cleaner, is it better to spray it on a surface and not even wipe it then, just let it air dry, or should it be wiped to be more effective?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. So
Okay.
Regardless, when you're going to disinfect, it's extremely important to pre-clean. And that pre-cleaning can be just any general purpose cleaner. You want to remove as much of the soil before you disinfect. And that's part of the instructions of any disinfectant. Because to the point of the question is, there is some value of actually wiping a surface and picking up that gross amount of soil, which includes, the virus or things of that nature, the bacteria that are there, that I think you need to make sure that if you are going to disinfect, you pre-clean. However, what we're running into here with COVID in particular is we need to have dwell time and allow that product to be, dependent on the product itself, from half a minute to 10 minutes of dwell time where the surface stays wet. And then over the course of that time, that surface is probably going to dry. I would say pre-clean, spray, possibly wipe, but don't wipe it dry. You need to let that disinfectant sit for its appropriate dwell time. And in case of Nichols number 3, it's a 10-minute dwell time.
Time it, 10 minutes. That's right. All right, well, that's all the questions we have, and we have lots of thank you for the information, great information. So thank you very much for all of you joining. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being a Nichols customer. Thank you to Bob and Glenn for your expertise joining. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to follow up with your Nichols representative or us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.